Welcome back to the New Music Alliance Radio Hour. I'm Violet Hausthor, joined this week by Mark Sherry, and you just heard Into the Wasteland by Jeff Burnham. Before that, St. Agnes by Chris Goudreau, and starting things off, Let 'Em Sing by Bo Thayer. Let's start things off with Jeff Burnham out of Hartford, Connecticut, Into the Wasteland.
That's a cool tune. I love the bass in that tune. It really drives the song. There aren't a lot of songs to me that like the bass really, without it being like overwhelming, it still drives that tune really well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I always love those keyboard touches. It's just that classic sound. Jeff Burnham's comes a lot from the tradition of like 70s era Americana, Heartland rock sort of stuff, like Tom Petty and John Hyatt. But this one in particular, I'd say has a bit of a Doorsy feel to it.
Oh
And
yeah.
it just works so well.
Yeah, it's got like that dreamy sound to it as well. Yeah.
And that's off the album State of Mind, which just came out earlier this month. So it was a really good record, honestly. A lot of different styles.
And before that, we had a tune by an old friend of ours, Chris Goudreau, called St. Agnes. And Chris, was out on his solo career, and he's for many years, and I guess they still are together as a band. He's part of the Leafies You Gave Me. And also, Chris, we know him well as a writer for the Valley Advocate for many years, a music writer. Chris has got an incredible voice. What a soaring operatic voice he has.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Out of Greenfield, Massachusetts, sort of described as operatic rock, chamber pop elements. This is off the album Apocalyptic Love Songs, which just came out earlier this month as well. Awesome record, really smart lyricism, heart-wrenchingly sad, very moving. Oh yeah, no, it does not let up. That song was quite sad and does not let up from there, but I think it's just so beautiful. And it makes sense. Apocalyptic Love Songs is apparently an album all about grief. Some very personal, some very much of a storyteller style. It's not all doom and gloom, but it's definitely a record about grief,
Yeah.
And it shows, and it's great. It goes there.
Yeah, I mean, some of the lyrics are like, really, mommy, what's the point of it?
Oh God, yeah.
Right. And, she's mixing Valium with wine. Just definitely that's not going to work out well as a long-term outcome.
Yeah, it's brutal. It's an awesome song and a really beautiful record. Chris is going to be playing at Luthier's Co-op over in East Hampton, Massachusetts, in late July, on July 28th. So keep an eye out for that.
And we started out, with Bo Thayer.
Yeah, Bo Thayer out of Stockbridge, Vermont, bordering on central Vermont. But Let 'Em Sing is a great record. Just came out last month. And I really love the sort of psychedelic rock influences on this and the really sharp lyrics. He says that it's a tune about breaking the chains of a society that advocates oppression of any kind. As many have said before, power to the people and freedom and unity, any way you slice it, still holds true.
Yeah, and I think that one of the cool things that I was reading about him is that he actually designed his own instrument called the bojotar, which is a combination of sort of a slide guitar, resonator guitar, and banjo.
Yeah.
And they actually produced it for a while. It was sold by the Eastwood Airline Guitar Company.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. Not everybody gets to design their own instrument.
Definitely not. He's a real talent, very creative. He's been playing for a long time. Back in his Boston group, Seven League Boots, which played with folks like Fugazi and Mighty Mighty Boss Tones and Pearl Jam. But no, eventually he just sort of ended up back in Vermont and started delving more into blues and banjo and slide guitar and bluegrass and experimental stuff. It's really fascinating. And the way he approaches music can vary wildly in what combination of those elements can be put together.
What are we starting our next block off with?
So our next block is delving a bit more into some folk punk and darker folk elements. We're going to be starting off with Joshua Hall with Bread and Roses.